All right, here's another half-baked nutrition take.
Seed oils are horrible for humans. They are very high in linoleic.
Something you might see from the anti-seed oil crowd is that seed oils increase inflammation in petri dishes, but nonetheless, that's an argument, right? Or to see that they have less nutrients than butter or tallow, right? Animal-derived fats. So what are seed oils, right? Seed oils are essentially fats that come from seeds, safflower oil, canola oil, those sort of items. This video, for some reason, even goes at olive oil and avocado oil.
Olive oil and avocado. Why would you use these fats when you could use much more nutrient-rich fats like tallow?
Which is beyond me, because those are some of the best heart health benefit evidence studies ever published. But hey, to each their own, right? So why is this a half-baked nutrition take, right? They claim you should stay away from seed oils, but the reality is really the opposite. Now, I will say this. Seed oils have become industrially produced at a massive level. And they are in food items like our ultra-processed foods that tend to be higher fat and carbohydrates, maybe even have some sugar in there, right? The items that we tend to want people to eat less of. So there is some general context to be known that seed oils are in those items. But in terms of anything being inherently wrong with seed oils themselves, no, there's really not. So let's address this from a couple angles, right? First off, one of the best studies ever to show really the benefits of linoleic acid, right? One of the fats that a lot of anti-seed oil people claim has a negative health effect or is inflammatory. So there's a study published by Marklund et al., 2019, in Circulation. They looked at 30 different cohorts. And this is across multiple countries. Over a dozen countries in there, 60 some odd plus thousand people they looked at. Now listen to this. They didn't just ask people what was in their food and guess at what the actual linoleic acid intake was. They actually measured it in their blood and in their tissues. Now, for those of you that don't know, when you consume fats, they do get incorporated into your cell membranes. So the more fats you eat of a certain type, those tend to be more represented in your actual cells. So that like you are what you eat adage, yeah, that is true. The more and more we look into our actual cells in our body. And it happens with fats too. So the more like omega-3s you eat, the more those are going to be incorporated into your cell membranes. So they did this for linoleic acid, right? One of the primary constituents of seed oil. And for people that had more of those fats in their cells, they had less cardiovascular disease, right? Like less heart disease and less deaths from cardiovascular disease and less strokes. So the more levels you had of this actually incorporated into your cells, which is representative of intake, you had less disease and less side effects. So really, if you get out into cell culture, right? Because like cells don't have heart attacks, people have heart attacks. When you measure it in humans, it is positively correlated with health metrics, especially heart health. Okay, I totally forgot about this one other point I wanted to make in response to this video. Don't worry, I'll have April edit this into it so it's in the right spot. I was talking about how all this anti-seed oil stuff is based on cell culture studies and how that's not relevant to human physiology when you talk about like, hey, cells don't have heart attacks, people do, right, got it. But let's just run with it, because like that data is there, right? The cell culture data, and if you douse cells with crazy amounts of linoleic acid, it doesn't inflammatory based items, right? Activates inflammation. I get it. So let's stick with that and look at the fats from butter and tallow. The fats in butter and tallow, right? And these are the saturated fats, palmitate. These are ones we literally use in experimental approaches to induce mitochondrial dysfunction and insulin resistance. So I'll pull up a study from some colleagues of mine that literally look at mitochondrial energy. So like inside your muscle cells, right? The organelle that produces energy, your mitochondria. We literally have experimental procedures where the standard approach to induce damage in them is to give them the fats from butter and tallow. You put palmitate on them, that's how you induce damage. So if you want to play the cell culture game in terms of, oh, seed oils, the fats from seed oils, linoleic acid could have negative effects, no, dude. If you look at the fats from butter and tallow, what they do to cells when you put those in cell culture, it is some nasty stuff. So if we're going to have that argument, like, there's nothing there. Now, the other main claim from this is that butter or tallow has more nutrients. I don't really know what he's referring to when he says that. Certainly there are some food items like milk and otherwise and yogurts that have bioactive fats. I'm not really sure what these seed oil people are referring to in terms of the nutrients in butter and tallow, but if you look at some of the other fats they mentioned, like olive oil is one of the most nutrient unique food items in terms of oils out there, because they have mounds of phytonutrients in them, specifically ones that we identify, polyphenols that are related to many heart health benefits as well. So there are actually defined ones in olive oils, and certainly when you look at whole foods like fruits and seeds, there's many more phytochemicals in there than we know are in butter and lard in particular. Now, that doesn't mean there's not a place for zoochemicals, right? The nutrients from animal foods that we typically don't measure. I mentioned the bioactive fats in yogurt and milk products, but it's not really those in butter and tallow. So I don't know about that. All right. So look, that's it from all angles. All right, I'm going to finish this one up from the court. That nutrition take was always half-baked. Now it's cooked. Ooh, lefty.
Here are 3 clips you can use on social to push back on the anti-seed oil misinformation.